Is it possible that a wave of foreclosures is going to make the housing correction even worse? And with 99% of all of the thumbnails on the housing market looking like this, you might just be led to believe so, but you're smarter than that, and we're going to look at the data and numbers together. So first, we're going to get a word from our video sponsor right now.
I just shot a real estate video, okay, at the house. How much do you think foreclosures have increased? Q1 of this year over Q1 of last year? 15%? What would you say? Just guess. And by the way, Q1, the rates were still okay. The rates have gone up the last 2 months is what's happened. That's been kind of scary. How much you think it increased? Foreclosures.
I'll say 20%.
How about 700%?
What?
Q1, 23,000 foreclosures. Last year we had around 2,500 to 3,000 foreclosures. Do you hear what I just said? And by the way, it hasn't even started yet. And it's 700% foreclosures Q1. The data we got on what buyers are doing, what investors are doing. Here's a crazy prediction for you. People don't want to hear it. I think 30-year fixed mortgage rates will eventually get to 10% in the next 6, 12, 18 months, okay? Interest rates, 30-year fixed. Don't be surprised if they crack 10%.
All right, so Patrick Bet David basically saying that, foreclosure starts are up 700%. I couldn't find the exact link to the Black Knight report that he's quoting here, but on the Motley Fool, I found this. Foreclosures are up 700%. Is this a red flag for the housing market? January 22 saw a massive jump in the number of foreclosure starts, with ATTM Data Solutions reporting 23,000 foreclosure filings, a 700% increase from December 2021. What's really important here is we need to understand that this is coming off the back of the moratorium of the forbearance programs, so we need to take this data into context. Let's look at the actual report of something recent so that we can get context around this. By the way, if you want to look at any of the data that I'm going to go over, I'm going to put all the links down in the description so you can look through it yourself and call me out if you want to. Now, CoreLogic.com is a fantastic website. If you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, they put out loan performance insights on a quarterly, sometimes monthly basis. This is the November data that we're going to look at right now. On a year-to-year change, we have gone down from 3.9% down to 2.8%. September to September, this is a 1.1 point decrease. Now, the way that these things are reported is you have 30 days or more, 30 to 60 days, 60 to 90 days, 90 to 120, and past 120 days. And then the total amount of homes that are actually in foreclosure. In nearly every single one of these categories, you can see that we've gone down. 30 days or more, down from 3.9 to 2.8. Basically negligible from 30 to 60, negligible from 60 to 90, negligible from 90 to 120, and from 120 plus, has gone down from 2% down to 1%. And what's important to understand here is nearly all mortgages that are currently held are below 6%. According to Zelman, 92% of mortgages are below 5%, 83% below 4.5%, 71% below 4%, 62% below 3.5%, and nearly half of all mortgages, all of them, are below 3.5%. What's important to note here is in this CoreLogic report, as of September 2022, the foreclosure inventory rate was 0.3%, slightly up from September 2021. And even more importantly, there were no metropolitan areas that increased on serious delinquency. There are 384 metro areas where the serious delinquency rate decreased. Not a single increase, most of them decreased. What's also really important to understand here is that nearly a third, I think it's like 38%, of all homes that are currently owned are paid off in full. So 62% of all homes that have a mortgage are in really good standing. But let's take a step back here and put this in context of history. What does this look like in context of 2004 to 2009? What was the normal market of 2012 to 2018? And then what happened both pre-pandemic, during pandemic, and where we're at today? I want you to understand that just because there are foreclosure starts doesn't necessarily mean that all homes go to foreclosure or get foreclosed on. So if you go all the way back to 2009, you can see that the peak foreclosure starts were in 2009 around 550,000 2 quarters in a row, and have precipitously dropped off all the way down through 2019 where it leveled off. Obviously, at the beginning of the pandemic, we said basically, hey, if you can't make your mortgage payment, you don't have to. Up to a year without any reason or cause to do so. So those foreclosure starts plummeted to all-time lows and have slowly increased since then, and yet have not even reached pre-pandemic numbers. All right, so those are foreclosure starts. What are the completed foreclosure numbers? So you can see that we peaked out sometime in 2010. Obviously, it takes time from when you start a foreclosure to when it actually gets foreclosed on, and has slowly and precipitously dropped off all the way through 2020, where again, when the pandemic hit, since 2010, we have seen a slow and steady decrease for the most part, all the way to 2020. When the pandemic hit and the forbearance programs came into place, you can see it dropped even further, and that those numbers have not come up as many as the foreclosure starts have started. Not nearly as many have actually gone through to foreclosure. The last point I want to make here about foreclosures is you have the start and then you have the end, and how long it takes from the start of foreclosure process to get to the end of the foreclosure process. That amount of time has slowly gone up over time, not down, with the last quarter of 2022 being 885 days, which means that even if the houses today that are in the foreclosure process go through that in its entirety, those houses are not going to hit the market for probably 2 to 3 years. Again, all of this information is public data and easy to find out. I don't know why these people are selling fear when they can easily look it up and give you a balanced approach. Now, I said earlier that interest rates have a big deal to do with why someone would actually stay in their home. I want to show you the actual numbers. On a $400,000 house, the difference between a 6.25% loan and a 3.25% loan is pretty massive, not only on the monthly savings, but the amount of principal that you have in your home over that span of time that you own it. Now, the average tenure in Virginia Beach right now is 13.7 years. That's about 164 months. So if we go by the average tenure, if someone's going to own this property for a certain span of time, what is the difference between that 6.25 and the 3.25? Not only do we have a $720 a month difference on that principal and interest, over that span of time, not only is the payment nearly $700 cheaper per month, but you get more equity in the home over that span of time. Let me show you where. You pay about $150,000 more in interest, and you get about $40,000 more paid off in principal on that property over that span of time. If you're paying more down on your property over time, not only do you have more equity, and if the housing market were to correct, you're in a better position overall. That's how powerful these interest rates, when they are low, can make a positive impact, not only on home affordability, but how the people hold on to their homes if tough times hit. All right, Dan, I get it. You're trying to drive home this point. We talked about the foreclosures, but what about into the future? What's the average equity that someone has in their homes? I'm glad you asked. According to a recent CoreLogic report produced by Business Wire, the average equity increased again in Q2 of 2022, with the total average equity per homeowner reaching a record high of $300,000. What's really important to understand here, this does not include homes that don't have mortgages on them. These are only mortgaged properties. And you may say to yourself, well, Dan, are they reporting all of the homeowners, or is this cherry-picked data? According to the website and the data itself, they only excluded about 5% of the population. This is 95% of all the homes. If there is a housing correction at all, you still have a ton of equity in the property. Let's say a housing correction happens at 20%. Yes, it sucks, but the people that are in their homes with a low interest rate and have a record all-time highs of equity don't have a reason to move unless they absolutely must. And so you may be asking yourself the question of, what about recent home buyers in the last year or two when home prices have gone up the most and interest rates now have skyrocketed? Wouldn't those people be the most at risk? And I would say, yes, those are the people that are most at risk. But if they end up staying in their properties, they're going to be just fine. But another piece of positive news to look at is that the amount of down payment for first-time homebuyers has gone up, not down. Another piece of positive data is that the majority of these first-time homebuyers, when they go to get their down payment funds, not only has that gone up, but where the source of that has come has improved from their personal savings and from their personal retirement funds. You go, well, Dan, how many of these people are getting gifts from family? It's still about 28%, but that number has come down, not up, which is another positive indicator of people that are likely to stay in their homes. Lastly, you might be asking yourself, Dan, what about all the forbearance properties? I hear that there's millions of homes that are still in forbearance. Au contraire, mon frere. Let's look at the data. As recent as October 31st, the share of mortgage loans in forbearance increases slightly to 0.7%. Not 7%, 0.7% in October. Okay, well, how many is that? Well, it says right here, according to MBA's estimate, 350,000 homeowners are still in forbearance programs. Let's take a look at the chart. Where did we start and where are we today? So context is always important. You can see at the beginning of the pandemic, we skyrocketed to nearly 9% of all mortgages. That was kind of scary. But hey, when the federal government basically says you don't have to pay your mortgage, there is no repercussions. You can take up to a year off of making payments. You can wrap it into the back end of the loan. You can do these loan modification programs and there's no penalty. Well, a lot of people took advantage of that. But you can see since that time, it has slowly and steadily gotten better and better. And today it's at 0.7%. All-time lows, 350,000 properties maximum. So instead of paying attention to these YouTubers that preach gloom and doom,
the sky is falling! The sky is falling!
The sky is falling!
Are you crazy?
make sure you're paying attention to someone that is balanced and goes over the data in its entirety.